Welcome to Sizzle Fantasy Sports, the channel with the most sizzling hot fantasy takes and analysis, presented by your host, Gavin.
Rodgers clean pocket, throws the middle to Yancey, touchdown, and a dagger!
All right, you guys, the NFL draft is officially under 2 weeks away, and I could not be more excited. I hope you guys are too. I can't wait for my draft show that I'm going to be doing live with Eric on the draft night, where we have immediate picks and analysis for every player coming off the board, and we're going to talk about the draft from even a pre-show standpoint all the way through the end of the night. But today we've got another mock draft Monday for you guys. I can't wait to get into things here. It's quite an interesting mock. I tossed some trades in there, and I shuffled up the board a bit from last time, and this is quite a bit different than any mock I have done yet on the channel here. So if you guys are new around here, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Turn that bell on so you guys are never late for an episode or never miss a live stream like my draft show that I will be doing on round one opening draft night, and I'll catch you guys in the video. See you then. Kicking things off here with the Jags with the first overall pick. This is Trevor Lawrence. It's not changing. I know in a recent interview last week, he made some comments about a lack of a chip on his shoulder and some various comments and whatnot about football and its role in his life. But I don't think this changes anything here. Trevor Lawrence is still the best quarterback in this draft class. The Jags have reportedly already given him their entire playbook, and I just don't see them swaying from this draft pick. Urban Meyer, he's a college guy. He knows where this player comes from, and he knows Trevor Lawrence inside and out. I think this is going to be a very successful combination there in Jacksonville, and I think that no matter what, you guys, Trevor Lawrence is the best talent in this draft class, and he will be the first selection on Thursday, April 29th in the first round. Then at number 2 here, this is where things get interesting. Justin Fields is who I have the Jets taking here at number 2 overall out of Ohio State. I know Zach Wilson is the consensus pick right now. It's where I've had the Jets going in nearly my last probably 5 to 7 mock drafts. I haven't diverted from it too much, but I am going to here today. Justin Fields has been under a lot of duress from the media, and he's been getting a lot of hate recently. So I decided to cut on the tape, take a second look at him, and make another evaluation for myself to really figure out who I see as the number 2 quarterback in this draft class. And I'll be honest, you guys, when I cut the tape on, Justin Fields impressed me just as much, if not more, than Zach Wilson. And my reason for taking him here at number 2 is very simple. I love Zach Wilson as a talent, and I'm not going to trash his play style whatsoever because I think he has a lot of great intangibles and skills of his own. But I think that for the New York Jets, they've had such a dysfunctional franchise and such a disaster of an organization, especially on the offensive end, for years now. I think you want a little bit more stability out of the quarterback position. The knock on Justin Fields has been that he always throws to his first read and he doesn't play well within a scheme. But I think that's entirely false after watching film on him. He is very good at making first, second, even third reads and checking down to the running back. He is very, very good. He's actually the best quarterback in the FBS. Throwing downfield, he is ranked number 1 out of all of the NFL draft quarterbacks for his accuracy and his amount of plays that he threw the football down the field. This is a guy who's going to play very well within an offense, and I think that new head coach Robert Saleh, as a defensive coordinator, can trust him to play within the new system that the Jets are going to be implementing. Zach Wilson is just a little bit too much of a freelancer for this situation, I think. Zach Wilson can make all the crazy throws you want him to. He's got a very special arm talent, but I think that for an organization that needs a little bit more stability, I think he's a little bit too much of a free rider and makes a little bit too much ad-libbing for this exact situation. So Zach Wilson will absolutely find himself a spot, I think, where he can be a franchise quarterback and a very, very, very impactful talent. But I think at the end of the day, Justin Fields is the better fit here. And for a team, like I said, with a defensive-minded head coach, it makes more sense for me to go with a rushing quarterback as well, like Justin Fields. Then at 3, we've got something more interesting here. So I've got Mac Jones going to the 49ers at 3 over Zach Wilson. Why? Because the rumors and reports when Mac Jones was the favorite to head to San Francisco were that Kyle Shanahan is looking for a quarterback to play within the scheme, to not make throws off script, and he wants a guy who is just really he wants a predictable quarterback, a guy who he knows exactly what he's getting from play in and play out. Zach Wilson, I've talked about this a lot recently, as well as Justin Fields, who is now actually the leading candidate or the leading odds leader to head to the 49ers at number 3 but I've got him going 2 here, so that's not an option. I think that where we see Mac Jones take the step ahead of a Zach Wilson for the 49ers on the draft board is that dependability and the ability that Kyle Shanahan will know what he's getting on a play-by-play basis. Whereas Zach Wilson, I don't think you can trust so much that he's going to play within the offense, and he's going to go off script a lot more. So Mac Jones makes a lot of sense here at 3 in this particular mock to the 49ers, but I do think there is a world where maybe on draft day, Zach Wilson does end up going number 2, in which case I would absolutely put Justin Fields ahead here at that 3rd overall selection. Then at number 4, I have the Broncos in a great situation with the ability to trade up with Atlanta at the number 4 pick, who, if I'm being completely honest, it's an uncomfortable pick. The Falcons team needs don't really fall well from a value perspective in that number 4 overall draft pick. I think if you're not picking a Penei Sewell or if you're not picking a Kyle Pitts, maybe you don't want to stay at that number 4 selection if you're the Falcons. I think it's wise to move back, acquire some extra draft capital, and try and get some extra picks to revamp that team, and especially that defense that really needs some help. So the Broncos give up multiple future selections to move into the spot here at number 4 overall and select their future franchise quarterback in Zach Wilson, who I think has better decision-making than Drew Lock, but still has that elite upside with that playmaking ability. I think that Drew Lock has a really strong arm talent. I think that he has all the tools you need to be a successful NFL quarterback, but I think that just the lackadaisical throws and the poor decision-making is what sets him below the bar for this organization. Zach Wilson, he does play outside the offense. He ad-libs a ton, but this is a guy who protects the football. 33 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions last season. I think with all the weapons around him, Zach Wilson could be a home run hit for the Broncos here at 4 and lead that organization heading into the future. Then at 5, another shuffling of the board here. This is a first for me. I've got the Cincinnati Bengals selecting Kyle Pitts, what many have already proclaimed as the greatest tight end prospect of all time, heading to Cincinnati to play with Joe Burrow. Why this pick, you guys, over a Jamar Chase, over a Penei Sewell? I've mocked offensive linemen all offseason long for the Bengals, and I'm finally diverging here. Why? Because I think that, the Bengals already have a left tackle in Jonah Williams. He was injured. He's been injured. But if he's back on the field and healthy, he's going to be solid to protect Joe Burrow. They went out this offseason and signed Riley Reif from the Minnesota Vikings, who they released to play right tackle. So I think for at least right now, they've got those 2 spots locked down. I would love to see them invest a draft pick to get a stronger tackle and either kick Jonah Williams to that right side or shuffle the board up in some way, shape, or form. But I think based off what we're hearing, this makes a lot of sense. In college, Joe Burrow loved throwing to the tight end. He and Thaddeus Moss had a very, very strong connection, and they actually just signed Thaddeus Moss off the waivers. So Joe Burrow, I think we even saw this a bit last season. Drew Sample, CJ Uzomah were heavily involved in the offense when they were healthy. I think if you go out here and get a guy like Kyle Pitts with this much talent, this makes all the sense in the world and could help Joe take that next step towards being an elite franchise quarterback, because I think T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd are already strong receiver threats, but there has also been some rumors that Jamar Chase is potentially having a landing spot here at 5, so that is another route we could see them going. But in this situation, I have the Dolphins at 6 landing Jamar Chase. The wide receiver position was addressed in free agency for Miami, but it is not a long-term fix, and these guys need to do something else to try and basically make a commitment to a guy who is going to be around for the long haul here. Will Fuller, who I think was a great addition for this football team, only signed a 1-year contract. So Tua has a guy this year that he can really depend on. I'm not a huge Devontae Parker guy. I don't think Preston Williams, those two, I'm not so sure that they best bring out what Tua does well as a passer. So I think you go out here, get Jamar Chase, the best wide receiver in this draft class, and really help Tua take that year 2 step forward and help him make the strides he needs to be able to win that division, which I think is very much up in the air, even though Buffalo is already a strong group. At 7, then, I have the Pats trading up with the Detroit Lions here to take the last of the top 5 quarterbacks on the board, Trey Lance out of North Dakota State. This makes a ton of sense to me. I think that Bill Belichick, we've seen him struggle with first-round picks that are non-defensive players a lot. Trey Lance comes into a situation here where he does not have to play right away. You've got the most prolific rushing quarterback of all time, maybe at the peak of his prime, and Cam Newton as your face of the franchise right now. He's only on a 1-year deal though, so he's clearly not the long-term fix there at QB. You can re-sign Cam even for a second, or it will technically be his third season. You can bring Cam back for a second year with Trey Lance on the team if you still think that he needs more time to grow and develop. But Trey Lance has a great ceiling. He has excellent intangibles and a lot of great attributes that he can bring to the table as a quarterback for this team. I think Trey Lance could walk into New England and solve that quarterback role long term if they give him the time that I think he needs to develop, because one of the knocks on him has been the amount of film that we have on him and the lack of starts that he has in college. So Trey Lance, I think he has great upside with some time to mature and develop, especially under a guy like Cam Newton who fits what he does really well. I think this could be a great situation for both teams. Then at 8 here, the best offensive lineman in the draft class falls right into the Carolina Panthers' laps. Penei Sewell is a mauler at the left tackle position. They just went out and acquired Sam Darnold, probably, or at least they hope to be their long-term fix at quarterback, because they have shown us all offseason long Teddy Bridgewater is not their guy. But what do we know about Sam Darnold? It's that he does not do well when he doesn't have competent protection in the pocket. Penei Sewell gives this team a huge boost. They already have a strength at right tackle, but the rest of that line needs help. Penei will help out Christian McCaffrey. He will help out that passing offense, and he's going to make things a lot more stable in Carolina. I think Sam Darnold could thrive there and be a big-time player if he has the competent protection. Then at 9, the Falcons, where they moved back with Denver. You remember Denver traded up to select Zach Wilson at 4 in my mock draft here today. I've got the Falcons taking Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern. I know that defense is a terribly large need for the Falcons, but I'm still not so sure, unless they go secondary here, that that's the right pick at this particular position in the board with the trade I've mocked today. Rashawn Slater is a great offensive line talent. He can play all 5 positions on the board. You plug him in day one, you can move him around anywhere you need. Matt Ryan has been a sack dummy as of late. It looks like, at least, that they've whiffed on those 2 linemen they selected in the 2019 draft. And while I have talked about linemen as being players that, 3-4 years down the road after draft day can potentially develop because it's a very technical position, I think you go out here and get a guy who you know is going to be a home run. Rashawn Slater has great refined technique, and he's got decent size, but he's a little bit undersized if you're going to play him as a pure left tackle. Nonetheless, though, I think you plug him in here, help out that run game for the Falcons. It was very poor last season, and try and make some gains with Matt Ryan to getting back on top in that division, which really could be quite winnable within the next year or two. Then at number 10 here, the last pick in the top 10, the Dallas Cowboys select Patrick Surtain out of Alabama. I think this makes a lot of sense to you guys. I've talked about Pat Surtain as being that big playmaker. He's kind of a home run hitter in the secondary. He makes big plays, big pass breakups, and we've seen him take it to the house for 6 on occasion as well in his time at Bama. So if there's a corner I really love in this class that does not really have significant injury concerns, it would be Pat Surtain. I've talked about this before. Caleb Farley was my corner 1 in this draft class prior to that surgery and injury he's dealing with right now. But in the meantime, while there's some uncertainties there, I think Pat Surtain is the pick here, and you can go pair him with Trayvon Diggs and a team that really needs secondary help. They've been rumored to really Jerry Jones has been rumored to be in love with Kyle Pitts at the top of the board. But that's going to require the team to move up and give away some draft picks to acquire the requisite pick that it would take to select a guy like Kyle Pitts. So I think they're best off staying put here. Go defense. That's where your needs are at. That offense is already loaded. I think Pat Surtain or any of the top 3 corners on the board would be a great direction for the Cowboys to go here at 10. That rounds out the back end of the top 10 here. Now into the 11th pick, we've got the Giants selecting Micah Parsons out of Penn State. I think this is 3 mock drafts in a row now that I've had Micah Parsons going to the Big Apple to play for the Giants. I think this pick just makes a lot of sense here. Micah Parsons is the highly athletic linebacker prospect that I think can come in and make a day 1 impact. In the run game, this guy is a beast. He can come off the edge as a blitzer. The Giants' defense is already very, very solid. We've seen these off-ball linebackers, the top guys out of college, come in draft classes and be inserted into defenses. We're talking Devin Whites, Devin Bushes, Roquan Smiths. These guys come in and change the defense entirely and bring them to the next level. I think that's what Micah does here for the Giants at 11. The NFC East is up for grabs. Anyone in that division can win it. I think that this helps the Giants make the transition they need to try and get up there because they've already made this offseason about Daniel Jones and addressing those needs. So I think it's time to turn back and look at the defense. Then at 12, the Eagles, I've got them taking Devontae Smith, the best route runner in this draft class at all three levels, the intermediate, the short, and the deep passing game. This guy's very good after the catch. He's a tough guy. I think that the Eagles need another offensive playmaker to give Jalen Hurts a fighting chance and help him take the next step that he needs to do in his own development as a quarterback. At 13, I've got the Chargers taking J.C. Horn out of South Carolina. We look at Casey Hayward was a very, very good corner for them. He's still a free agent. I think they need to address this need. I'd either go left tackle here or I'd go with a top cornerback prospect if they're still available. This mock, we're going corner. That defense has really, really strong pieces on it. I think you just need to round it out a little bit, and Justin Herbert could have a very, very good group of guys around him to play with next season. At 14, I've got the third and final member of the big three corners in this draft class. Coming off the board here to the Vikings at 14, Caleb Farley. I think he is the most talented cornerback in this draft class. As I mentioned a little bit earlier on in the video, he is dealing with some injuries. He just had surgery on his back, and that is putting his draft stock in question here. But I still think that he is a highly valuable pick. At 14, if I'm the Vikings, I think you got to take another swing in the secondary here. Jeff Gladney, your first-round pick from last year, he had some off-the-field concerns. He turned himself in on assault charges, and we don't know what's going to happen with that. You can't risk it. Last year, the Vikings secondary was so bad early on, and I think that they have Danielle Hunter coming back. The pass rush is going to be improved. You got to just pump picks back into that defensive secondary because while your team is very, very talented, there are big gaping holes, secondary being one of them. So I think Caleb Farley addresses that pretty well, and playing alongside Pat P, that's a great guy to learn from here for Caleb Farley. Then at 15, the Lions in the trade where they moved back with the Patriots. I've got them taking Jalen Waddle. Wide receiver is such a glaring need for the Lions right now. Jalen Waddle's a guy who off play action balls, Dan Campbell has talked about how he wants to get that run game going. If that's the truth, and if they get that run game attack started up here, we're going to see some players be able to run free in the secondary on those play action passes. Get a guy as explosive as Jalen Waddle. This can wreak havoc in secondaries in the NFC North and really help the Lions start this rebuild process off. I think that as much as I might want to hate on a guy like Jared Goff, who has limited upside and ceiling, you got to give him a fighting chance. That's what Jalen Waddle is here at 15. He's a very athletic playmaker. He can win contested grabs too, even in a small stature. So he's a guy I would believe a lot in here at 15. And if I'm the Lions with such a glaring need, like I said, at wide receiver, where right now there's some questions, if not they have the competent players to get separation and space for that offense, go out and get Jalen Waddle, and I think that solves their issue at least for 1 year, or at least for that wide receiver one position. At 16, the Arizona Cardinals have to make this season about protecting Kyler Murray. Elijah Vera Tucker out of USC is a perfect prospect to do so. Another versatile guy, not quite as elite of a prospect as a Rashawn Slater, I'd say, but this is a guy who can still play the guard or tackle position for your football team. I think Vera Tucker is more suited as an offensive guard, and I think that, playing guard can still be very valuable for this team at number 16. They're going to need some run game improvements, and I think that for a football team that just signed James Conner, obviously Kenyon Drake departed in free agency, we saw James Conner really struggle to be efficient with the Steelers O-line last year, which is probably on paper already better than the Cardinals line as it is today. You got to make upgrades. Otherwise, that run game is going to be stagnant. Kyler Murray is going to get sacked a whole lot more, and it's just going to open up issues long-term for this team if your quarterback can't stay healthy, and we ended up seeing Kyler get banged up a bit towards the end of last season. So Vera Tucker could be a very valuable pick here at 16. I would love to see the Cardinals invest into his future by giving him some protection here in round 1. Then at 17, this one makes a lot of sense for me too, you guys. The Raiders take Kwity Paye out of Michigan. They need pass rush. Pass rush is such a big deal for defenses, and the Raiders defense has been atrocious lately. Their secondary has been awful. They've struggled, honestly, in their linebacking core, and Cleveland Farrell and Max Crosby are not getting the job done. Add another piece in this defense. Kwity Paye is the most refined edge rusher in this draft class, I think. He's got the best technique, and I think he walks in day one and is the best player at his position. So there's maybe some guys with higher ceilings here, but the Raiders need help, and they need it now. Kwity Paye at 17. Then at 18, I've got the Miami Dolphins selecting Jaelan Phillips, the edge out of Miami. I think this is a player who's a spark plug for this defense. Brian Flores, he can always use more talent. He is an excellent defensive head coach. Jaelan Phillips is going to add both versatility as a player against the run and in the passing game. I think he can get after the quarterback. He's going to make big plays. And like I said, this guy, people can rally around him on the football field. He's a spark plug. He's an emotional leader. I think Jaelan Phillips could be a big deal for the Dolphins here at 18, who are looking for maybe 1 to 2 more pass rushers to really solidify that group as being a strength of the defense. Then at 19, JOK heads to the Washington football team out of Notre Dame. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is one of the most versatile linebackers in this draft class. He's probably the best linebacker from a coverage perspective as well. And the Washington football team, that defense is already elite, especially in its front four. Add another guy who can be really helpful because that linebacking crew is quite weak, if we're being honest, and take a look at the depth chart. There's some glaring holes. So JOK can come in here. He can play coverage really well. He plays aggressive in the run game. My one knock is that sometimes his tackling form isn't the best. That's certainly fixable, though. Not a big concern. A little bit undersized, but I do think that the coverage ability makes up for it and makes him a very versatile prospect at 19. Then at 20, I've got the Chicago Bears taking Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech. Christian Darrisaw is an absolute mauler. This is a huge human being. The Bears have some needs at offensive tackle. They have Charles Leno. They have Bobby Massey. But I think it's time that we move on from Bobby Massey, or at least prepare to move on from him in the future. He's had his struggles. Christian Darrisaw is a guy who can come in and provide an extra level of protection for Andy Dalton. I think the Bears are in the middle of, they're in no man's land right now. You're missing your quarterback, you're missing some other pieces, and this roster is kind of starting to crumble. I'll be honest though, as a Packer fan, it's very pleasing to see this happen to the Bears. But nonetheless, you guys, I think it's time to build around a guy like Christian Darrisaw and really help implement that offensive line as a strength for whoever the long-term solution is at quarterback, because I don't think it's Andy Dalton. Obviously, the Mitchell Trubisky experiment didn't go well. Nick Foles is still on that roster, but what we see right now is they don't have mobile players. If you can't protect these pocket passing quarterbacks, you're going to have yourself big issues. And Christian Darrisaw, I've seen him decolete pass rushers by giving a simple jab off the line of scrimmage. So this is a very, very strong player, a very big guy. I think the Bears would be very well suited here, even in the short term, picking a guy like Darrisaw who can add immediate help in the running and passing game to this franchise. At 21, the Colts, I have them taking Greg Rousseau out of Miami. This is another highly athletic edge rushing prospect who doesn't have the most refined skill set, but is definitely a guy who has, like I said, a great ceiling and could potentially find himself being an elite edge rusher if he maximizes his technique and really becomes a refined player. Greg Rousseau, he gets a bit lost after his first or second pass rush move. He doesn't really know how to react when his initial pass rush attempt gets blocked, or if the offensive lineman does a good job initially off the ball. He gets a little lost, a little bit confused, but the athletic intangibles are by no means not there. This guy is a freak of athleticism, and I think he comes in, maybe takes a bit to develop. Maybe you don't hear his name too often at the beginning of the season, but as he learns and develops, I think the core of this D-line with DeForest Buckner, you add in a guy like Greg Rousseau, they even had Justin Houston last season. Maybe he comes back and makes an impact still this season. That could be a very strong defensive unit, and for a group of guys that started off in that phase of the game very strong last year, I think this pick makes a lot of sense at 21. Then at 22, I've got my Green Bay Packers trading up with the Tennessee Titans. Brian Gutekunst, the Green Bay Packers general manager, has moved from his initial draft position every single year that he has been the GM of the Packers. The last 3 seasons, Green Bay has moved forward and backwards in the draft multiple times, so I think that's something that we can kind of expect to be the norm here for the Packers. And when I look at Tennessee at 22, quite often I don't know where to go with these guys because they have so many pressing needs, but I don't think there's just one player who walks in and is an immediate large upgrade over the player they already have at that position. The Packers, they have a big need for wide receiver. Rashad Bateman, I've comped him to Devontae Adams many times. This guy's a great route runner. Maybe isn't the most fast guy, doesn't pop off your screen as an elite athletic prospect, but the routes are unquestionable. He has very good intangibles. I think, like I said, I've comped him to Davante Adams, so the fact that he would be able to learn from Davante Adams in Green Bay would only make this guy better. The Packers fill a big need at 22 here, and we'll see the Titans later on. But at 23, we've got the Jets. I've had this pick for a while now too. Wyatt Davis out of Ohio State. They need offensive line help. If you're going to go out there and draft a quarterback at number 2, you have got to protect them. We saw them go out last year, pick Mekhi Becton. That's a great draft pick, great franchise left tackle, but there's 4 other spots on that offensive line that need to be taken care of. Those guys are not long-term solutions. They're veterans who can play 1 or 2 patch years. But Wyatt Davis comes in. I think he's the best interior offensive lineman in this draft class outside of an Elijah Vera Tucker maybe. And he comes in. He can be a mauler in the run game and even add some boost in protection as well. Not to mention Justin Fields, Wyatt Davis, both Ohio State prospects. They've already got some chemistry up front there with these 2 picks. Then at 24, I've got the Steelers taking the best available offensive tackle prospect, Tevin Jenkins out of Oklahoma State. Now, I should have rephrased that a little bit. Tevin Jenkins is not the best offensive tackle prospect in this whole draft, but he's my best guy left on the board here. They have not re-signed Alejandro Villanueva yet. He's still a free agent, and that's a big need here. Ben Roethlisberger, as we see him age and get older, he's not as athletic and as mobile as he used to be. He's kind of a tree trunk in the pocket. He's a guy who can throw the ball still with dudes draped all over him. Big Ben's been one of my favorite guys to watch as I grow up here and have watched the NFL develop over the years. Big Ben has made some crazy passes. He's one of the best backyard football style quarterbacks of all time, but you need to protect him here. He's not athletic and as mobile as he once was in his career, and it's time to get that team across the board some help up front because that run game really struggled last season. So Tevin Jenkins, he's a violent player up front. He's really aggressive, and in the passing game, he is decently refined as well. So this pick helps out the Steelers a lot here. Not a flashy one, but I think at 24, Tevin Jenkins is a steal for anyone on the board. At 25, I've got the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Trayvon Merrick out of TCU. The Jags have such a young secondary. They really need playmakers in the back end. I really like what they've done so far in their front 4 to front 7 guys. They don't really have too many what I guess you could call 5-star talents, guys that are just going to dominate the game. But they've got a lot of young potential up there, that I think I would like to see develop for a little while longer before I make a draft day move to replace any of those guys. So I'm going to let those guys develop a little bit longer and address some more needs on the back end. Last year they picked CJ Henderson to be their number 1 corner out of Florida, and he played decent, but he still got some room to grow. And then in free agency they went out and got Shaq Griffin to address that second cornerback spot. So I like that, but the safety position is still a bit weak. I think you want to add some extra security over the top. Trayvon Merrick is my top safety in this draft class, and for, like I said, a very athletic guy who's got really great ball skills and great intangibles, I think he could be a really nice fit with the Jags here at number 25. Then at 26, this has been my popular pick here for the Cleveland Browns. Zaven Collins out of Tulsa is an absolute playmaker. This guy does stuff all over the football field in the run game and in the pass coverage game. Zaven Collins just makes plays. He has a nose for the football. He's a hard hitter. He's aggressive, and he's a big dude. They just brought in Jadeveon Clowney, so the Browns officially have 3 top picks in the draft on their roster. I believe it was like 6 picks in the top 10 and maybe 8 or 10 guys that were first-round picks on this in their roster. So a ridiculous amount of talent for the Browns. This is one of the best rosters in the NFL. It's not questionable here. The Browns don't have very many team needs. You look at their offense, and it's literally stacked. Their defense is nearly stacked, but maybe there's 1 or 2 missing pieces they could add here. I think that's in the linebacking core, so that's why we're just going Zaven Collins or whoever the best linebacker is on the board at 26, basically every mock draft. Then at 27, the Ravens, I bounced around here with what position I'd like them to address. But at the end of the day, I decided Azeez Ojulari out of Georgia. They could really use another pass rusher here. They lost to Darius Smith a couple seasons back. Obviously, Terrell Suggs has moved on and retired. And then this past season, their next best pass rusher went to the New England Patriots. So there's a definite need here. Matthew Judon, like I just mentioned, out the door. You need to address that position. Lamar Jackson in this offense, they're getting discovered here. People have found out what the Ravens do well offensively. And so there is a new position of need to address. As much as I love to see Baltimore get Lamar Jackson, a real wide receiver one threat to throw the football to, because I think he can be a very competent passing quarterback, you need to address that defense. Their D-line is solid, but the linebacking core, the pass rushers, need an upgrade here. Azeez Ojulari out of Georgia, I think, could make a big impact and splash for the Ravens defense. At 28, I've got the Saints taking Jamin Davis out of Kentucky. A new face on my board here, but this is a very, very athletic linebacker here. A guy that I think could almost fill the Kwon Alexander role, who obviously they had to make the tough choice and move on from because of all the cap troubles they had, especially with COVID lowering that number down this year. But Jamin Davis, I've seen him make a lot of plays in the pass coverage game, makes a lot of hard-hitting plays in the run game. He has a nose for the football. This guy gets after it. I think that he's an underrated player that not too many people talk about, and I think could sneak in here at the back end of the first round. I really like this pick here. Underrated guy. I think the Saints could turn this player into a home run hit if they are able to select him at 28. Then at 29, where I had the Titans move back with Green Bay, I got them taking Christian Barmore, the defensive lineman out of Alabama. Christian Barmore, he's a big guy, not quite the prospect of a Quinnen Williams that we saw come out of Bama a couple seasons back, but Christian Barmore is kind of that next tier down, very solid interior defensive line prospect, actually got after the quarterback quite a bit for an interior pass rusher. I think the Titans just need talent on that defense. Secondary is a need, but they did address it somewhat in free agency. They kind of holistically revamped that whole unit. They cut all their starters besides Christian Fulton, their first-round pick from a couple seasons back, and they went out and signed Janoris Jenkins from the Saints. And then pass rusher is also a need, but they went out and signed Bud Dupree. So just looking around the board here, they could use another run stopper in the interior. Christian Barmore, I think you can pair him nicely with Jeffrey Simmons and help bolster that front four unit and help these guys get back after it and be a competent defensive team. Because at the end of the day, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, Ryan Tannehill, they're going to score you your points, but you need guys that can hold that lead and hold down the fort when you're sitting on the bench on the sidelines. Then at 30, the Bills, I've got them taking Nick Bolton out of Mizzou. Nick Bolton's been absent from my mock drafts for quite a while now. To be honest, I kind of forgot about Nick Bolton for a while. But this is a guy who I was really impressed with when I watched his tape. Very athletic, very good in coverage, and I've seen him make some big plays against some very good talent. Nick Bolton has blown up Najee Harris in the backfield and Travis Etienne even. There's been plays where I've been really, really impressed with him. The Bills need off-ball coverage linebackers, and I think Nick Bolton really fits the mold here at number 30. I think there's a few different ways the Bills could go about things here. There's not really a player I see on the board right now making a huge immediate impact other than maybe a running back, but I still think this is a nice fit here and a guy long-term who could fill a position of need and become a starter for this franchise that's right on the cusp of reaching that Super Bowl berth. Then at 31, you guys, I talk about this every video, we're going offensive tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. You got to protect Mahomes. Sam Cosmi, he's a guy who's got a lot of technique. I think that I kind of hated on his athleticism a little bit prior to his pro day, and then his numbers came out, and they were pretty eye-popping, to be honest. So I really like Sam Cosmi as a prospect here. My knock on him was he gets off the ball a bit slow, but after seeing what he did at his pro day, his shuttle runs and his three-cone drills and stuff like that, they were pretty impressive numbers. So Sam Cosmi moves back into my first round for me, and I've got him going to the Chiefs here at 31. Then at number 32, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the luxury pick, as always, pass rusher. I've got them going Joe Tryon, the edge out of Washington. Joe Tryon can play off ball as a coverage linebacker. I've seen him drop back in the flats on fourth down and blow up running backs on swing passes. And he dominates offensive tackles at the level of competition he's playing right now. He's not playing the best teams in college football at the moment, but this guy has a lot of skill. He's a great inside and outside pass rusher. If he's a hit here for the Buccaneers, that pass rush is going to be really scary, and that's a unit I would not want to see if I was an offense in 2021. All right, there you have it. That was my latest installment of my NFL Mock Draft series. Mock Draft Monday here on the SFS channel. be sure, you guys, to head down, click that subscribe button, and turn the bell on so you guys are notified whenever I come out with a new mock. Maybe I'll come out with 2 this week since we're getting to crunch time here. And obviously, so that you are notified when I go live for that draft show. It's going to be a ton of fun. You guys are going to be giving away 10 free fantasy football draft guides for sizzlefantasy.com that you see at the bottom of your screen right now. And there's just going to be a lot of interaction going on. It's going to be a really great and fun night. So I can't wait to get into that stuff with you guys. But thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace out.